Hello, everyone. Mark Johnston here, marriage expert and head coach here at High Thrive Coaching. This series of videos that I'm running here is meant to give you all just a small taste of like some of the tips, the advice that I normally give to many of the clients that I work with. Today, I wanted to talk about how to address some of the major concerns in your relationship. Now, of course, this is a complicated matter. It's not just a simple answer, but I wanted to kind of distill this down into a few small tips. So if you're here, then more than likely you're experiencing some problems in your marriage. For many people, the reaction to hearing complaints about them is either to, one, feel shame. You might be saying to yourself, how could I be so stupid? Or how could I make these kind of mistakes? And you go about feeling bad about things and fixing it. Or the other reaction is to dismiss it, not even knowing what they're talking about. You're like, no, that's wrong. I'm not those things that they're saying. A lot of people kind of go into one of those categories, but there is a lot of ground in between, taking on all the blame or dismissing your spouse. There's a lot of room between turning things back on your spouse and fighting back or just being a doormat. And so today I want to talk about the best possible ways to address the concerns that come up in your marriage, especially during a marriage crisis. And it all boils down today to 3 tips. Number 1, your spouse's feelings are absolutely valid. What they feel is real. So you need to pay attention to that. Remember that. Feelings are always valid. Number 2, their interpretations of events may not be accurate. And you might not need to take on all the blame, unless there's something very, very obvious, okay, I really messed up. Well, chances are it's a more complicated issue. You might not need to take on all the blame. And 3, if you act confidently as the kind of spouse that you would want to be, you'll get very far in your problems. So let's start with that first one, the validity of their feelings. Let's pretend that your spouse is upset. Maybe they believe that you've been having an affair, or maybe they claim that you've been controlling or something. Let's pretend that the accusations that they've been throwing at you really could be farther than the truth. Maybe you have been 100% faithful. Maybe you've been really trying to really respect what your husband or wife has to say. The facts don't really matter in regard to how you should treat your spouse's feelings. This is true for false accusations or really any misunderstanding. In all these cases, it's important to make sure that your spouse feels heard and as though their concerns can be addressed. I mean, it would be a scary thing if you believed your spouse were having an affair. It would be a terrible thing if you felt like they were this controlling, manipulative person. And the last thing that you would need is a simple dismissal. No, instead, you would want reassurance, cooperation. You'd want support and feeling safe. So in bringing up concerns, your spouse is trying to communicate to you what they do and or do not want. And it's a bid to have some needs met, and it's up to you to listen, whether their accusations are necessarily 100% accurate or not. You need to listen to them. And the better that you can listen, the better that you can be interested and curious, the better your outcomes will be. Second area, I call this, just thoughts are just that. They're thoughts. While feelings are always valid, thoughts are just thoughts and may not be accurate. If you know that you have been present and supportive, or maybe just that you've been mostly there and maybe could have done a little bit better, but for the most part, you felt like you did okay. If you feel like that you've made many attempts to give your spouse a voice and not control them, but you're being accused of being manipulative or controlling or mean-spirited or something much worse, it is okay for you to question those accusations. Now, if you do, though, make sure that you're keeping in mind the first tip is to validate and take care of how they feel. So as an example, this is just a really small scale sort of thing. As an example, I remember, some time ago, it was at the end of a long week, and my wife was looking a bit sad. So when I asked her about it, she gave some sort of non-answer, and as a loving husband, of course, I pushed further. I was curious about how she felt. I was trying to validate her feelings a bit. Um, I expressed an interest in what my wife was thinking. This is when she expressed to me that I didn't really want to talk to her, is what she was saying, that I should just go off and do my own thing. Well, for some reason, my wife at that time had interpreted my actions during the week, for some time, as a lack of interest in her, disinterest in spending time with her. The truth was, I think I remember at that time, I think I had gotten busy with some work and wasn't aware that my wife had really been wanting to spend time at that time. I was simply getting things done, and I assumed that she would take care of herself. But I was able to get around this problem, around her concern, not because I gave in and I apologized and I went to her, you know, begging for some forgiveness. It's not because I was saying, "Oh, you poor thing," or anything like that. But I did go to her and I paid attention to her feelings, and I confidently let her know that I actually did want to spend time with her. I knew that this issue wasn't because of lack of interest in my part, and I was confident enough, and I let her know. I think this is a misunderstanding. And because of that, because I took the time to understand how she felt, to validate some of her feelings, but I corrected where she was mistaken, it kind of balanced that whole thing out. And we were able to get around that. And we had an enjoyable evening together. And this is just, par for the course and for many couples. But let's pretend that your spouse still is resistant. They don't like you questioning how they are interpreting things, and they still contend, no, you're controlling, you're manipulative, you're this mean person. Well, this brings us to our third tip. Decide who you want to be. Doesn't matter what kind of person your spouse claims you to be. It's up to you to decide the kind of person that you are. So ask yourself, who do I want to be? If your spouse is saying that you've been this unsupportive person, okay, do you want to be a supportive husband or wife? Do you want to be that caring, loving sort of spouse? What do people like this do? What do people like this say? How do people like this feel? Make sure that you are deciding what is important to you and be confident about it. So if your spouse is complaining that you've been controlling, then maybe you need to think about, okay, well, what's the opposite of that? Maybe you need to decide to be respectful, and let them know when you're making attempts at respecting their decisions. What this is specifically doing, especially if this is a sort of long-term problem, a long-standing sort of issue or complaint, it one takes into consideration what the complaint is, and you start taking action on it. But two, it also starts breaking down a possible story about you that's driving the two of you apart. If your spouse believes you to be this controlling, manipulative person, and you're saying, it's really important to me that I hear you out, that I support you, because, I know one of your concerns is that I've been controlling. That's just not the case. Then go about doing the kind of things that respectful, caring people, supportive people would do, saying the kind of things that those kind of people would say. It breaks down that story and makes your spouse much more likely to question those negative things that they say about you that is driving them away. So just to sum this all up, make sure your spouse feels heard, listened to, like their feelings are valid. You should question some of their judgments about you. And then you should decide to do something about it. Decide to be different. Decide to be the kind of person that you want to be. Make sure you set about, following through with that. If you do that, a lot of your concerns have the potential to just melt away. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you stick around for some more of our videos.